Well, we've been looking at the basics, going back to a basic introduction to the God of the Bible. All of us need that refresher. I need that refresher every now and then. And what we've been looking at most recently was the problem that we have with God, which is that we want to be the ones that make the decision of right and wrong, good and evil, apart from Him. And God's way of dealing with that was, rather than destroying us, He decided to enter our world, first of all, through His Word, by speaking to us. And in particular, He made promises, and we looked at how He entered into the world in the promise to Abraham, how He promised He would give him a land, and He would give him seed. He would give him descendants, multiplied descendants like the sand of the sea and the stars of the sky, and then He would use them to bring blessing to the world. And that's really what God is seeking to do. That's the story of the Bible, God bringing blessing to the world. Now that's the easy part. And now we're going to come to the hard part where it starts to get very complex. Over the next few weeks or months, it might seem that we're all over the place, but we're really looking at God and how He reveals Himself, who He is and how He works, so that we might know Him better. So we're going to start with the promise that was actually made to Abraham. Remember, there was a covenant that was made, a formal promise, where there were animals cut in pieces and there was a bloody path, and God walked through that path Himself and said, here's what I'm going to do for you. And this is what He told Abraham in Genesis 15:13. The Lord said to Abram, know for certain that your offspring will be sojourners in a land that is not theirs, and will be servants there, and they will be afflicted for 400 years. But I will bring judgment on the nation that they serve, and afterwards they will come out with great possessions. We're going to look at that in a lot of detail today in the book of Exodus. He also made the promise, as for you, you shall go to your fathers in peace. You will be buried in a good old age. So even though the promise was made to Abraham, he never really inherits it. It's going to go beyond his time. The only land he gets to inherit is the cave in which he was buried. That was it. And they shall come back here. Your descendants will come back here to this land in the fourth generation, for the iniquity of the Amorites, the people who live in Canaan, is not yet complete. God had multiple purposes. Yes, I'm going to bless your children, but you are also going to bring a problem to these people who refuse to repent. But I'm going to give them 400 more years to repent. And hopefully their eyes will be open. So they're going to go down to Egypt, right? And that's where we're going to pick up our story this morning. There's one more verse. On the day that the Lord made a covenant with Abram, to your offspring I will give this land from the river of Egypt to the great river, like the river Euphrates, and the land of the ites. And I'm not going to go through all the ites, right? So He's going to give them that land. That's all part of the promise. Now, you remember how that story unfolded. So you have Abraham, and he had a son, Isaac, who married Rebekah. Well, he married Rebekah and had Jacob and Esau, twins. And then Jacob and Esau had kind of a little falling out because, well, Jacob stole the birthright. And Jacob goes to the land of his fathers, all the way back to Ur, and Haran, not Ur, but the land of around Ur. And the city was Haran, and he took two wives who were sisters, Leah and Rachel, and they ended up having 12 boys and a daughter who became, I saw some of the women go, oh my gosh, 12 boys. Yeah, what a household. And you remember how that story turns out. They come back, and the second youngest son, Joseph, is a favorite, and the other brothers hate him and sell him into slavery in Egypt. And while he's there in Egypt, he ends up going to prison and ends up being raised out of prison to become the next in line to Pharaoh. And his wise dealings in government actually help Egypt live through a terrible famine. And so he's this wonderful person. He's reconciled with his brothers. Everything's good. And when we close the book of Genesis, the early fathers have died, and their children are all in Egypt, right? And that's where we leave them. And that is going to bring us to the story of Moses, which is 400 years later. A lot can happen in 400 years, right? So the first thing that happens is people multiply. The book of Exodus opens with like 7 verses of introduction, but they cover 400 years. So it's just kind of a big rush to cover it. And one of the things it tells us is that the Israelites were in Egypt and they were fruitful and multiplied. So 70 people went down, it says. So if there were 35 couples, and let's assume that a generation is 25 years. So every 25 years, each couple has 4 children, right? And then it just keeps going on for 400 years. Do you know how many children, how many people will be alive in 400 years from those original 35? 9.2 million. Yeah, I didn't do that. AI did that for me. I'm terrible at math. That's a lot of people. And that's not including, children dying early, which that often happened and stuff. But still, that's a lot of people. And they were fruitful and multiplied. And this began to frighten some of the Egyptians. It says, now there arose a king who knew not Joseph. Now that doesn't necessarily mean he didn't know about him. It could mean that he wouldn't recognize him. This often happened in ancient cultures when it's almost like Trump derangement syndrome. Like, the minute that Trump is out of office and the Democrats are in office, they're going to change the Gulf of America back to the Gulf of Mexico, and everything's going to be rechanged. They're going to try and wipe out. And that's kind of what they actually did in the ancient world. They would scrub names and faces off of memorials so that families would be lost. And it appears that was happening here. This Pharaoh who came to the throne felt threatened by this growing number of Israelites who was in his land, and he said, we got to do something about that. So the first thing they did was enslave them, right? So you're going to do hard work for us, we're not going to pay you, you're our slaves. And so life became very hard for them. They continued to be fruitful and multiplied despite that, the opening of Exodus says. And so they said, we got to do something else. We don't want these slaves joining our enemies and overthrowing us from the inside. And so here was the plan. When the Israelite moms are on the birthing stool giving birth, you're going to take all the baby boys and you're going to throw them in the Nile River and let them die. That was the plan. If it's a girl, let her live. The girls won't be a threat. We can intermarry with them and that's fine, but the boys have to die. And so there was one little baby boy who was born and they threw him in the river, kind of. They obeyed, but they put him in a little boat. And his name was Moses. And Moses is found by an Egyptian princess, Pharaoh's daughter, and he's raised apparently in the courts of Egypt in some way. And he sees an Egyptian taskmaster mistreating a slave, and he kills him, hides him in the sand. And he thought nobody saw it, but then he finds out that people did see it, and he flees into the wilderness. And we've looked at this, right? He goes out, he gets married, he's shepherding for 40 years, happy life, and then he meets God. Burning bush. And God calls him and says, I'm going to send you back to Egypt to liberate all these millions of people who have been mistreated and are slaves. And that's where we're going to pick up the story today in Exodus chapter 3. And I'm going to go through this, and the book of Exodus, the way it tells the story, is what's powerful. I'll just throw in a couple comments here and there, and then at the end I'll draw some applications. But I want you to feel the weight and the pressure of the story as it was told to the Israelites. Go and gather the elders of Israel together, Moses, and say to them, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, of Isaac, and of Jacob, has appeared to me, saying, I have observed you and what has been done to you in Egypt, and I promise that I will bring you up out of the affliction of Egypt to the land of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, a land flowing with milk and honey. And they will listen to your voice, and you and the elders of Israel will go to the king of Egypt, and you'll say to him, the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, has met with us. And now please let us go 3 days' journey into the wilderness that we may sacrifice to the Lord our God. But I know that the king of Egypt will not let you go unless he's compelled with a mighty hand. So I'll stretch out my hand and strike Egypt with all the wonders that I will do in it, and after that he will let you go. And I will give this people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, and when you go, you won't go out empty, but each woman shall ask of her neighbor, and any woman who lives in her house, for silver and gold jewelry and for clothing, and you will put them on your sons and on your daughters, and so you shall plunder the Egyptians. That sounds good, doesn't it? After 400 years of slavery. So Moses and Aaron went and gathered together all the elders of the people of Israel. Aaron spoke all the words that the Lord had spoken to Moses, and he did the signs in the sight of the people. You remember the signs? He had a rod, and when he throw it down, it would become a serpent. Then when he touched the tail, he'd pick it up, and it would become a rod again. And the other one was Moses would stick his hand inside his coat. When he brought it out, it was leprous. And then he'd put it back in and bring it out again, and it was healthy, just to show that God had great power. So they did the signs, and the people believed. And when they heard that the Lord had visited, and that word visited, that's another one of those Hebrew words, which is one word that we can't really translate in one word. It's pakad, but it kind of means to come back, like you come to visit, but it's also to show care and tenderness and relationship. It's like the whole visit itself, not just stopping in to visit. So he's come back, the Lord has come back to care for his people of Israel, that he had seen their affliction, and they bowed their heads in worship. They are so excited. This is going to be great. So like tomorrow, Moses is going to go in and he's going to tell the Pharaoh what's what, and we're leaving tomorrow. It'll be over, right? And that's it. Yeah, well, that's not what's going to happen. That's what you expect. Hey, this is good. We're all for you. We're behind it. And then you turn to chapter 5, verse 1. Afterward, Moses and Aaron went and said to Pharaoh, "Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, let my people," it's the first time he says that. So here is this ragtag bunch of slaves. They're not really a nation. They're just tribes of people. They've been slaves for generations. They're not really organized. They're related, but they're just Egyptian slaves. They don't know what it is to own property. They don't know what it is to have their own laws or their own government or be responsible for themselves. They're completely dependent on the Egyptians. And that's how they've lived for generation after generation after generation. And now God says, "You're my people." He puts a boundary around them. And we're going to watch him over the next few weeks. We're going to watch how he sets those boundaries, because that's very important when you're a people. But he starts by saying, "Let my people go, that they may hold a feast to me in the wilderness." And Pharaoh said, "Who is Yahweh? Who's the Lord, that I should obey his voice and let Israel go?" I don't know the Lord. Moreover, I'm not letting Israel go. He's not in the pantheon of Egyptian gods. I've never seen him. Who is this God? You're a bunch of slaves, and you expect me to respect your God? I don't even know that God. I'm not recognizing. No, you may not go. And then they said, "But the God of the Hebrews met with us. Please let us go 3 days' journey into the wilderness, that we might sacrifice to the Lord our God, lest he fall upon us with pestilence or with sword." If we don't worship him, we're in trouble. And Pharaoh, takes the last bite of his apple and throws it away and says, "Oh, I don't care what happens to you. If your God destroys you, too bad for you. I'm not letting you go." In fact, the same day, Pharaoh commanded the taskmasters of the people and their foremen. Taskmasters and foremen. So taskmasters are Egyptians. Foremen are Israelites. Right? So now the Israelites have leaders who work for the Egyptians to oversee the Israelites. The same day, he commanded the taskmasters of the people and their foremen, "You shall no longer give the people straw to make bricks, as in the past. Let them go gather straw for themselves. The number of bricks that they made in the past, you shall impose on them. You shall by no means reduce it, because they're idle. That's why they cry, let's go and offer sacrifice to our God. Let heavier work be laid on the men, that they may labor at it and pay no regard to their lying words. So when you make bricks, when I was a kid, there was a lot of clay in the creeks, and we'd go dig the clay out and we'd make things and set it in the sun and let it dry. Except what happened is as it dried, it would crack and crumble. It was like so disappointing. I made such cool pots and cups, and they'd fall apart. Well, that's the issue with the clay and the bricks. The clay and the bricks, if you didn't put straw in it, kind of like we put rebar in concrete to reinforce the concrete, big iron bars, or fiberglass. You can put fiberglass in, and that absorbs the water, helps it dry more evenly, and makes the concrete hard and firm. That's what happened with the straw and the bricks. The straw would absorb water, help it dry, help it hold together. The Egyptians had always provided them with straw. Now he says, they don't have enough to do. They want to take a vacation and go out and worship God. So here's what we're going to do. They have plenty of time in their hands. Let them go gather their own straw. Save us the trouble. But they still have to make the same amount of bricks. So the taskmasters and the foremen of the people went out and said to the people, thus says Pharaoh, I will not give you straw. Go get your own straw, wherever you can find it, but the work will not be reduced in the least. So the people were scattered throughout the land of Egypt to gather stubble for straw. And the taskmasters were urgent, the Egyptians, saying, complete your work, your daily task every day, as when there was straw. And the foremen of the people of Israel, whom Pharaoh's taskmasters had set over them, were beaten. So it's not the everyday slaves that are beaten. The foremen are beaten because the slaves aren't working hard enough, which forces the foremen into a hostile relationship with their own people, right? This is a way to break people apart. And they were asked, why have you not done all your task of making bricks today and yesterday as in the past? And the foreman of the people of Israel came and cried to Pharaoh, why do you treat your servants like this? No straw is being given to your servants, yet they say to us, make bricks, and behold, your servants are beaten. That's the fault of your own people. And Pharaoh said, you're idle, you're lazy. That's why you say, let's go sacrifice to the Lord. Go now and work. No straw will be given you, but you must still deliver the same number of bricks. And the foreman of the people of Israel saw that they were in trouble when they said, you shall by no means reduce your number of bricks, your daily task each day. And the foreman met Moses and Aaron, who were waiting for them as they came out from Pharaoh. And they said to Moses and Aaron, may the Lord look on you and judge, because you've made us stink in the sight of Pharaoh and his servants, and you've put a sword in their hand to kill us. And Moses turned to the Lord and said, Lord, what are you doing? Why have you done this evil to your people? Why did you ever send me? For since I came to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has done evil to this people, and you haven't delivered your people at all. This isn't going the way I thought I saw it in my head. Pharaoh's not letting us go. And he's got all the power. And it's getting worse. And God's going to respond in Exodus chapter 7. And he's going to say, we got them right where we want them. The Lord said to Moses, see, I've made you like God to Pharaoh, and your brother Aaron shall be your prophet. You shall speak all that I command you, and your brother Aaron shall tell Pharaoh to let the people of Israel go out of his land. But I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and though I multiply my signs and wonders in the land of Egypt, Pharaoh will not listen to you. Okay, I'm sorry, that does not sound like a plan. Right? Like, how are you? This is the opposite of what you promised. And God says, then I will lay my hand on Egypt, and I'll bring my hosts, my armies, my people, the children of Israel. I'll bring them out of the land of Egypt by great acts of judgment. The Egyptians will know that I am the Lord when I stretch out my hand against Egypt and bring out the people of Israel from among them. And that's going to bring us to the plagues. We're going to look at all of them. Not in every detail, but because almost everyone says the same thing, but each time there's a little tweak and a little detail, and that's what I picked out for you to look at this morning. Now, the first thing I want you to recognize is that every one of these plagues is an attack on one of the gods of Egypt, because Egypt worshipped snakes, they worshipped the Nile River, they worshipped the gods of the river, the frog gods, they worshipped insects, scarabs, gnats, flies. They worshiped the sun. They worshiped Pharaoh himself as a god. And God, in these plagues, is going to show that he has power over every single one of them. So the first thing he does is the snake trick, right? So Aaron comes in with his rod and throws his rod down. You remember what happened? Well, there were Egyptian magicians who came in with their rods and they threw them down and they all turned into snakes. Of course, Aaron's rod ate all the other snakes, and Aaron bent down, picked it up, and it became a rod again. Pharaoh was not impressed. He didn't let them go. So we need a second sign, and that is turning the water into blood. So he's going to stretch out his hand and his rod out over the river Nile, and it's going to become blood. All the fresh water in Egypt is going to become blood. But the magicians of Egypt did the same by their secret arts. So Pharaoh's heart remained hardened, and he wouldn't listen to them as the Lord had said. And Pharaoh turned and went into his house, and he did not take even this to heart. Can you imagine how discouraging that was? Okay, yeah, we do the snake thing, but yeah, turning water to blood? Yeah, you can't do that. Oh yeah, we can do that. And they did the same. And it's like, oh my word, we're not going to convince anybody. And yet it's blood. And they needed the Nile River for fresh water. And it says all the Egyptians dug along the Nile dug along the side, hoping to get fresh water to drink, for they couldn't drink the water of the Nile. 7 full days passed after the Lord had struck the Nile. Notice who gets affected. It's not Pharaoh, it's his people. That's a bad thing for a leader, when people are experiencing bad things. And they're struggling for a week. Egypt's hot. You need water. And they couldn't get water. All there was blood. They struggled to get water for themselves. But Pharaoh wouldn't let them go. So there's a third plague. Frogs. And Moses is going to raise his rod and call frogs out of the Nile River. But the magicians did the same by their secret arts and made frogs come up on the land of Egypt. Like, I would look and say, how is this helping things? Right? Like, there's gazillions frogs, and the magicians say, oh, we can do that too. Here's more frogs, 10,000 more. But they did. And Pharaoh called Moses and Aaron and said, plead with the Lord to take away the frogs. Oh, they can make the frogs come out. They can't get rid of them. So Pharaoh asked, take the frogs away from me and from my people, and I'll let the people go to sacrifice to the Lord. And Moses said to Pharaoh, be pleased to command me when I'm to plead for you and for your servants and for your people, so that the frogs be cut off from you and your houses and be left only in the Nile. I don't know that I ever saw that before. Okay. You make the call. Now, if I was Pharaoh, you know what I would say? Right now. And Pharaoh said, tomorrow. Tomorrow. I want you to ask for it tomorrow. He obviously didn't care that his people were suffering with frogs. One more day. Now, he thinks he's in charge. Right? He may have done that because he said, tomorrow, they'll all just leave tomorrow anyway, so it'll be a natural thing. But God says, no, I'm the Lord of time, And I will step in and I'll do exactly as you asked to show you who I am. And Moses said, be it as you say, so that you may know that there is no one like the Lord our God. The frogs shall go away from you and your houses and your servants and your people. They will be left only in the Nile. So Moses and Aaron went out from Pharaoh, and Moses cried to the Lord about the frogs as he had agreed with Pharaoh. And the Lord did according to the word of Moses. Now, I'm sorry, but the way he does this, I think is hilarious. Because, see, like, maybe Pharaoh expected that all the frogs would just turn around and hop their way back into the Nile. Or maybe he thought they would be raptured and removed from the land. You know what happens? The frogs died. Have you ever been around dead frogs? When I was a kid, there was a big pond where I grew up in what's now Butter Valley Golf Course, and when they put the third tee in, there was a pond there, and there were bullfrogs in there. And we used to try and catch them and stuff like that, and every now and then we'd find dead ones. And I want to tell you, slimy dead frogs really reek. Now, I can't imagine what thousands of them are like. Like they all just keel over at the same time. And they're laying there with their eyes open. They died in the houses, the courtyards, and the fields, and they gathered them together in heaps, and the land stank. So God makes them do the work. They have to get shovels and rakes, and they spend the day getting rid of stinky dead frogs. I don't know. I just think God has a sense of humor. But when Pharaoh saw that there was a respite, he hardened his heart, and he wouldn't listen to them as the Lord had said. So he has to send gnats. When we used to go to church in the old building, this field was all like high grass and stuff. And I remember oftentimes when we would be outside after church on a Sunday evening, my poor daughter Amy used to get bit by gnats. They liked her for some reason. Everybody got it, but she'd have these little red welts, and she would be shaking her hands trying to get the gnats away. And they were all over her back and her ears, and they were just all over. This is going to be all over the land of Egypt. Aaron raises his rod and then hits the dust, and the dust becomes gnats that are biting people. The magicians tried by their secret arts to produce gnats, but they couldn't. So there were gnats on man and beast. And the magician said to Pharaoh, "This is the finger of God. This isn't a sleight of hand trick. There's something supernatural going on." But Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and he wouldn't listen to them as the Lord had said. So they sent flies. Right? Swarms of flies. But there's a twist to this one. On that day, Exodus 8:22, on that day, I will set apart the land of Goshen, where my people dwell. So the Israelites all dwelt in a certain land. It was called Goshen. It was a section of Egypt. And he says, no swarms of flies will be there, so that you may know that I am the Lord in the midst of the earth. Thus I will put division between my people and your people. The God who divides, categorizes. Tomorrow. It's like he's going to, watch this, he's going to rub that tomorrow in Pharaoh's face with every single plague. Tomorrow this sign shall happen, and the Lord did so. And the Pharaoh called Moses and Aaron and said, go sacrifice to your God within the land. Okay, now watch this. He's going to start bargaining with God. He's saying, okay, this is the finger of God. My magicians can't deal with this. What am I going to do? I'm supposed to be a God, so I am going to bargain with the Almighty. So here's what we'll do. I'll let you go, but you have to worship in the land of Egypt. And Moses said, it wouldn't be right to do so, for the offerings we sacrifice to the Lord our God are an abomination to the Egyptians. They believed that sheep and goats were unclean, and the Israelites raised sheep and goats. That's why they're in a separate part of the land. If we sacrifice the offerings that are abominable to the Egyptians in the land before their eyes, won't they try to stone us? We must go 3 days' journey into the wilderness and sacrifice to the Lord our God as he tells us. Hey, our God's doing you a favor. Come on, we don't want to make you unclean. But Pharaoh said, I will let you go to the sacrifice to the Lord your God in the wilderness, only you mustn't go very far away. So plead for me, get rid of the flies. And Moses said, behold, I'm going out from you, and I'll plead with the Lord that the swarms of flies might depart from Pharaoh, from his servants, from his people tomorrow. Only let not Pharaoh cheat again by not letting the people go to sacrifice. Well, now you know what happens. He prays, the flies disappear. Pharaoh goes, yeah, forget it. Stay here. So God says, all right, we're going to kill all your livestock, or a lot of your livestock. We're going to send a plague on them. We don't know what the plague was, but it was something that struck livestock. It struck all their farm animals. It struck their pets. But the Lord will make a distinction between the livestock of Israel and the livestock of Egypt, so that nothing of all that belongs to the people of Israel will die. And the Lord set a time saying, tomorrow the Lord will do this thing. That must have been so fun. It's like so snarky. You like tomorrow? Well, you're going to get tomorrow. And the next day, the Lord did this thing. All the livestock of the Egyptians died, but not one of the livestock of the people of Israel died. And Pharaoh sent, and behold, not one of the livestock of Israel was dead. So he's not sure he believes the report. So let's go into the land of Goshen and check. And sure enough, everything's fine in Goshen, where all the animals of Egypt are dying. And his heart is hard. Okay, not enough to make your animals sick? Let's make the people sick. Boils, painful boils. And the magicians could not stand before Moses because of the boils, for the boils came upon the magicians and upon all the Egyptians. So what that means, that they couldn't stand before him, is Pharaoh calls for the magicians to come in to try to repeat the performance, and they say, hey, we're calling in sick today. Because they had boils. So everything that Moses had said would happen, and it happened to the Egyptians, and the magicians couldn't get rid of their own boils, much less come and represent Pharaoh. But the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, and he didn't listen to them as the Lord had spoken to Moses. So we're going to get a hailstorm and lightning. Now, some of the Bibles will talk about hail and fire, but I believe the fire, what they mean is the striking lightning that would start fires, right? So it's a thunderstorm with hail. And here's what God says, for this time I will send all my plagues on you yourself and on your servants and your people, so that you may know that there is no one like me in all the earth. For by now I could have put out my hand and struck you and your people with pestilence, and you would have been cut off from the earth. I'm toying with you. But for this purpose I have raised you up, Pharaoh, to show you my power, so that my name may be proclaimed in all of Egypt. No. So my name may be proclaimed in all of Israel. No. So my name may be proclaimed in all the earth. The promise, what God has been trying to do, is to let all the families of the earth know him and be blessed in him. And he's doing it through these people. And he says, Pharaoh, I want to draw you into that. Pharaoh has an opportunity to glorify God. And yet you're still exalting yourself against my people and won't let them go. Behold, about this time tomorrow, I'll cause very heavy hail to fall, such as has never been in Egypt from the day it was founded till now. So get your livestock and all that you have in the field into safe shelter. For every man and beast that's in the field and is not brought home will die when the hail falls on them. What a gracious God. Hey, you've seen me do all this other stuff? You think I don't mean what I'm saying? I'm going to do this. Be smart. Get your animals in. Get your servants in. You don't have to die. Then whoever feared the word of the Lord among the servants of Pharaoh, there's Egyptians who are starting to be swayed. Whoever feared the Lord among the servants of Pharaoh hurried his slaves and his livestock into the houses. I love that. They hurried. They didn't wait until tomorrow. Yeah, he means what he says. Let's get this done. But whoever didn't pay attention to the word of the Lord left his slaves and his livestock in the field. And the hail struck down everything that was in the field in all the land of Egypt, both man and beast. And the hail struck down every plant of the field and broke every tree of the field. Only in the land of Goshen, where the people of Israel were, there was no hail. Locusts. I hope this isn't getting boring. He just keeps it up, doesn't he? Pressure, pressure, pressure. The Lord said, now I want you to watch this. This is Exodus 10. It's important. The Lord said to Moses, go into Pharaoh, for I have hardened his heart and the heart of his servants. Pay attention to that. Pharaoh's heart has been hardened by God. The servants' hearts have been hardened by God. They are committed to their course of action. That's what it means. That I may show these signs of mine among them, and that you may tell in the hearing of your son and your grandson how I dealt harshly with the Egyptians and what signs I have done among them, that you may know that I am the Lord. Not just the Egyptians. I want you to know you're my people, and I want you to know and remember. So Moses went in to Pharaoh and said to him, thus says the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, how long will you refuse to humble yourself before me? Let my people go that they may serve me. If you refuse to let my people go, behold, tomorrow I'm bringing locusts into your country, and they will cover the face of the land so that no one can see the land, and they shall eat what is left to you after the hail, and they will eat every tree of yours that grows in the field, and they will fill your houses and the houses of your servants and of all the Egyptians, as neither your fathers nor your grandfathers have seen from this day, from the day they came onto the earth until this day. All right, locusts are like grasshoppers, but it's a type of grasshopper that swarms, right? And they still get them in the Middle East. And boy, when they come, they're just like everywhere. I don't know if you've ever heard, if you've ever been around where insects where you can actually hear them chewing, right, or moving around. If you have enough of them, you can. In the old church, we had wasps and yellow jackets that always liked to nest. Some of you who were there might remember this. You could hear them wiggling around and munching on the inside of the drywall. It was really cool. So imagine that. Everywhere you look, there's grasshoppers. Legs and wings and fluttering. And they're everywhere. And then he turned and he went out. That's it. And Pharaoh's servants said to him, how long will this man be a snare to us? Let these people go that they can serve the Lord their God. Don't you get it? Egypt's ruined. Now remember that in the first verse it said the hearts of the servants were hardened, and yet they can still make the choice to say, this is what you're doing is wrong. Could Pharaoh have made that choice? He sure could have. He didn't want to. God simply pressured him in the direction that he was already going. So it's not a destruction of his free will to choose. The servants chose, and they're saying, look, this is terrible. The hail has torn everything down. All we have left is what's left in the fields that we can go out and collect that. Don't let him send locusts. So Moses and Aaron were brought back to Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said to them, okay, go and serve the Lord your God. But which ones are going again? We're back to bargaining. And Moses said, we will go with our young and our old. We'll go with our sons and our daughters and with our flocks and our herds, for we must hold a feast to the Lord. And Pharaoh said to them, may the Lord be with you if I ever let you and your little ones go. Look, you've got some evil purpose in mind. No. Go, the men, only the men, and serve the Lord your God. For that's really what you're asking. How do you like that for pompous? Moses says, no, everybody's going. And Pharaoh says, no, that's not what you're asking. Tell me again. You're asking me for only the men to go because that's what I'm telling you you're asking. This guy's a narcissist. I'll tell you what to think. And they were driven from Pharaoh's presence. He didn't let them go. Darkness, an attack on the sun. So Moses stretched out his hand toward heaven, and there was pitch darkness in all the land of Egypt. 3 days they didn't see one another, nor did anyone rise from his place for 3 days, but all the people of Israel had light where they lived. And Pharaoh called Moses and said, "Go, serve the Lord. Your little ones may also go with you. Only let your flocks and herds remain behind." We're still bargaining. And Moses said, "You have to also let us have sacrifices and burnt offerings that we can sacrifice to the Lord our God. Our livestock must go with us. Not a hoof shall be left behind. We have to take them to serve the Lord our God, and we don't know with what we must serve him until we get there. So when we get there, we'll know exactly what we're supposed to sacrifice. We have to take everything." And the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he wouldn't let them go. And Pharaoh said to him, "Get out! Get away from me. Take care never to see my face again, for on the day you see my face, you will die." And Moses said, "As you wish. I will not see your face again." And now he's going to curse them with the death of the firstborn. The Lord said to Moses, "Yet one plague more, and I'll bring upon Pharaoh and upon Egypt. Afterwards, he'll let you go. When he lets you go, he will drive you away completely. Speak now in the hearing of the people that they ask every man of his neighbor and every woman of her neighbor for silver and gold jewelry." And the Lord gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. Moreover, the man Moses was very great in the land of Egypt, in the sight of Pharaoh's servants and in the sight of the people, but not in the sight of Pharaoh. See, everything's starting to turn. Pharaoh's alone. And Moses said to Pharaoh, "Thus says the Lord, about midnight I will go out in the midst of Egypt, and every firstborn in the land of Egypt will die. From the firstborn of Pharaoh who sits on the throne, even to the firstborn of the slave girl who is behind the handmill, and all the firstborn of the cattle. There will be a great cry throughout all the land of Egypt, such as there never has been, nor ever will be again. And not a dog will growl against any of the people of Israel, either man or beast, that you may know that the Lord makes a distinction between Egypt and Israel, my people. And all these servants of yours, they're going to come down to me," to Moses, "and they're going to bow down to me, saying, 'Get out, you and all the people who follow you, and after that I will leave.'" And Moses went out from Pharaoh in hot anger. He'd had his fill. And the Lord said to Moses, "Pharaoh's not going to listen, that my wonders may be multiplied in the land of Egypt." And then he gives directions to the Israelites. I'm just going to read these really quickly. We're going to talk about these more next week. Moses called the elders of Israel and said to them, "Go select the lambs for yourselves according to your clans and kill the Passover lamb. Take a bunch of hyssop, which is a weed, a common weed, dip it in the blood that is in the basin, and touch the lintel and the 2 doorposts with the blood that's in the basin. None of you shall go out of the door of this house until the morning, for I will pass through the land of Egypt that night, and I'll strike all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and all the gods of Egypt, all the gods of Egypt. I will execute judgment. I'm the Lord. And the blood will be a sign for you on the houses where you are. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and no plague will befall you to destroy you when I strike the land of Egypt." And at midnight, the Lord struck down all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh who sat on his throne to the firstborn of the captive who was in the dungeon, and all the firstborn of the livestock. And Pharaoh rose up in the night, he and all his servants and all the Egyptian, and there was a great cry, for there was not a house where someone was not dead. Now see, we're used to that story. And we say, "Oh my gosh, why didn't he just kill Pharaoh? Why did he kill Pharaoh's son? The son of the slave girl, the son of, what? That's really cruel." Do you remember how the book started? Firstborn sons of the Israelites being thrown into the Nile River. God says, "You want to dish it out? You want justice? This is justice." It's ugly, but that's what he does. And then he summoned Moses and Aaron by night, so Pharaoh did, and said, "Up, get out from among my people, both you and the people of Israel. Go serve the Lord as you've said. Take your flocks, take your herds as you've said, and be gone." And now look at this. "And bless me too. Say a little prayer for me." I'm not sure how to take that. Like, is he serious? Is he kind of like bowing the knee, or is he being ironic? I don't know. That's a fascinating line. Chew on that. And the Egyptians were urgent with the people to send them out of the land in haste, for they said, we're all going to die. If these people hang out, like, I don't know what it is with them, but like, we got to get rid of them. They are a curse. And the people of Israel had done as Moses told them, for they had asked the Egyptians for silver and gold and jewelry and clothing, and the Lord had given them favor in the sight of the Egyptians, so that they let them have what they asked, and thus they plundered the Egyptians, exactly as God said 400 years earlier. And the time that the people of Israel lived in Egypt was 430 years. And at the end of 430 years, on that very day, all the hosts of the Lord went out from the land of Egypt. Yeah, I want to just give you 4 points to think about real quick. Number one, just in looking at this whole story, God takes his time. He told Abraham he was going to have land and seed and blessing, but Abraham died. Now, that didn't mean the promise died. It just meant God had a longer time range. Right? God, time doesn't mean anything to God. So he can take his time to fulfill promises. That's not my perspective or yours. See, we think what religion is about, it's about me. It's about my personal life and personal comfort and what God does for me. No, you're not developing the plan of the universe. God is. You're the one that's stepping into it. What if you're one of those generations in the 400 years where your part in the plan is to be a slave? That's it. Be a slave. You're born a slave. You do hard work, have a few meals, die a slave. And you say, well, where's God? Oh, he's right where he always was, right on the throne. You just think you should be on the throne. It's not about me. Secondly, God doesn't work in a straight line. Do you know what I'm saying? Like at the beginning, our expectation is, oh, he's going to go in, beat up Israel or beat up Egypt, and the Israelites will come out. And it'll be that. It didn't work that way. For starters, they ended up having to be slaves for 400 years. When they're finally released, Moses goes in to release them, and Pharaoh says, no. So who's in charge? It's like, wow, Pharaoh's in charge. Well, let me ask again. I'll try to ask nicely. I'll say, please. Pharaoh says, no. And then he makes their life harder, bricks without straw. And then that upsets the taskmasters, and it upsets the foremen, and the foremen are being beaten, and the foremen ask for relief, and they don't get relief. And the people are upset, and the foremen are upset, and they go to Moses and say, what are you doing? Get out of here. And Moses goes to God and says, what are you doing? This isn't what you said. And God says, oh, we've got him right where we want him. And then he does it in steps. He just breaks Pharaoh and Egypt gradually, step by step by step. But if I was Moses, I'd get tired of hearing him say, no, I'm not letting you go. And I'd get tired of God saying, don't worry, I hardened his heart. It's like, okay, could you do something else? This isn't work. This isn't what I imagined. And yet in the end, God does exactly what he wants. And everything I thought was a setback was not a setback at all. It was part of the plan. Yeah, you don't have too much trouble applying that, right? We all have setbacks. We all have things where we say, what in the world is God doing? Well, with God, a setback isn't necessarily a setback. But it's totally against me. Doesn't matter. There are other things that God is doing. Number three. And this is something we don't often think. What we're going to watch now here is God is actually calling these people, this ragtag bunch that has no organization at all, and he's going to turn them into his people and a nation. We're going to see him at Mount Sinai, giving them the law and a constitution and all of those kinds of things. But he has to start where they are. And you know what their main problem is? They've learned to be slaves and they like it. They like it. Right? Because once they get free out in the wilderness, guess what happens? They say, man, I really miss Egypt. We had garlic and leeks and onions back there. We don't have any of that with this manna. What in the world's that? Right? I miss slavery. So what did God do? He destroyed everything that they trusted in. They couldn't trust in it anymore because there's nothing there. And now he says, come to me. Trust me. Well, trusting him isn't as easy as it seems, is it? Because, boy, it doesn't always have all the things that were even good under slavery. And after a while, slavery can kind of look good. God, when he calls us to himself, he has to break our love for the things that we're bound to. And that takes time. That takes time. And then he draws us to himself to walk with him. But that's a process. And God has all the time in the world to do that. And that's the God that we worship, the God who takes his time. Father, thank you for being that way. Thank you for your word. Thank you for this amazing story of how you worked. And I know we haven't been able to touch on all the things that we can see there, but we love this about you. And we thank you for being the God who takes time to work with us and to break us and to take away the things that we trust in, that we idolize other than you, and for drawing us to yourself and loving us to yourself. And we pray it in Jesus' name. Amen.